Washington, D.C., the most heavily protected city on Earth.
Within its limits, 177 foreign embassies, 550 elected officials, and 23,000 military personnel. In the event of an attack, critical personnel are evacuated, underground shelters open, while complex defense systems patrol the sky.
But nothing stopped the virus. 27 days after patient zero, Washington fell. It began with riots on K Street, then shootings in the National Mall. Troops withdrew to bunkers. Civilians were left in the streets.
America is on the brink of collapse, but some people have survived. Gardens grow on rooftops, their fences patrolled with rifles, in communities that live under constant siege. Survival has taken the form of urban warfare.
Centuries ago, on this very soil, brother fought brother, spilling blood to forge the United States. History is threatening to repeat itself.
Now, in the heat of summer, 6 months after the outbreak began, a remnant of a corrupt state lurks in the shadows, ready to engage in a new civil war.
Agents of the division are the only ones standing against it.
But how do you save a nation when its enemies come from within?
What is going on, everybody? We are live here at the Ubisoft booth at Paxwest. We are streaming for the next few hours. We have a whole ton of games to show you. Later on, we're talking For Honor. We're looking at Starlink Battle for Atlas. We're taking a look at what's coming up with Far Cry 5 and doing some gameplay with Brawlhalla. But before we get into all of that, we are talking the Division 2. You just saw the trailer. I am here with Keith from the Division 2 team. Keith, how you doing?
Dude, I'm doing great.
Yeah, so you're here at PAX, you're showing off the game. How's that feel for you?
Oh, it's amazing. I mean, we're here at PAX. It's all, gamers just getting their hands on the game for the first time, and it's awesome seeing people play the demo.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Is this your first time at PAX West?
It is, yeah. I've been to, some of the other events, but this has a cool vibe. It's everyone's really positive and just excited to check out games. It's great.
Yeah, that's awesome. So we are talking the Division 2 today, obviously.
Yes.
We're going to set the stage, tell people what's going on. We're going to show some gameplay, talk about Washington, D.C., really get into a bit of the nitty-gritty with this.
Yeah.
For people who don't know, what's going on with the Division 2? Where is it set in compared to the first game?
Yeah. So, that trailer does a pretty good job at kind of setting it up, but, we're 6 months in the future, right? We've continued the timeline. And, the virus from Black Friday, in the first game back in New York, it's kind of been contained, but DC has fallen. And you're a division agent, you've already been on the field, and you get a distress call to go to DC and, try to take it back.
Yeah, and so, you said it right there, you're not at the beginning of this sort of pandemic,
No.
You're 6 months into it. What was the reason for, shifting that time frame?
There's a lot of reasons, right? We wanted to have a different season for players to run around in. We've all ran around the snow a lot.
Yeah.
Let's get in there and kind of get a new environment. We wanted to progress the story. There was just a lot to be gained from kind of continuing the timeline and making a continuing story.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're not fresh anymore.
Yeah.
You're a little bit seasoned.
Exactly.
You got sweltering DC heat on you.
Yeah, it's a very, very different feel for players who played the first game.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I want to talk a little bit about DC. Too.
Yeah.
What was the decision behind going to Washington, D.C.?
There were, in the very beginning, right, there were lots of cities looked at. They announced a little bit ago, we at one point were looking at Seattle, right where we are right now. But when we really kind of broke it down, DC was kind of an obvious choice. One of our goals is to make a true kind of one-to-one recreation of the city. And we did that in New York. But we kind of came out of that with two big environments, two major environment types, right? We had the residential and we had the more business centers. Inside DC, still doing that one-to-one, we get 6 different environments. So what that adds to gameplay, what that adds to just your experience of exploring the world is so huge. And then adding on top of that, just what DC is and means, right? It's the center of power, for the United States. So there's just a lot to milk out of that environment.
Yeah, I think if you immediately look at it, it's very obvious this isn't New York in the middle of winter, right? I think the thing that stands out most when I look at DC is really how open it is, how varied it is, right?
Yeah, exactly. And each section of the city kind of has its own gameplay field. In the demo that people are getting to play here, that's a really wide open environment, probably more open than anything from the first game. And then you contrast that with going into some of these, more suburban areas, and you get a lot of gameplay variety.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned trying to build it at that 1-to-1 scale. Was it important for you that if you know DC, you'll know this game?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like the amount of time we spend looking at maps is immense, but there's also tools that we've been adding to the engine so that it's 1-to-1 down to street signs, park benches. It's all of that, satellite data that's being pumped into the game to make it a true 1-to-1 recreation.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have some gameplay we're going to show off a little bit later on, but we're also going to jump in, take a look at a little bit of the customization, take a look at an agent, and take a look at the map overall. So why don't we jump into that?
Yeah, cool. So this is the start of the demo that players can play on the show floor. So you can kind of see here, right away, summer, very different kind of environment. You can almost feel the heat. And if I jump into my inventory, you can start seeing some of the changes we made to that nitty-gritty part of the RPG. And the biggest change right off the bat is the specialization weapon, right? When you get
hold on, I just want to stop you right there. We're still talking a little bit more about DC, showing off some of the more detailed environments. And as you can see here from the stream, you guys put in so much care and depth into this world. I think it's one thing to build DC, it's a whole other thing to ruin it in a way, right?
Yeah, well, the whole world is made in layers, right? Like we start with that base DC, that 1-to-1 we were talking about, but then you're layering on top of that the story, right? What happened to these environments in the beginning part of the outbreak? What would have they been used for? And then what happens now that we're 7 months later and the factions have taken them over, right? There's so much layered environmental storytelling on top of each environment. You can see a lot of it in that kind of walkthrough video there.
Yeah, I think just walking around, you see how much research you guys put into it. You see how much care went into every single detail, and I think we can see that now here when we go into this gameplay.
Yeah, cool. So if I kind of dive in to the inventory here a little bit, there's a few things right off the bat that are kind of immediately different about this game. And the big one is we had a real end game first mentality when building this game, right? We knew from years of people playing.
Oh, all good. We almost had a trailer there.
Yeah, it was a little tease for later.
Oh yeah, we're coming back to that.
Yeah, so we had this end game first mentality, right? Because we have years now of running the first game live, and we know that players spend the majority of the time in that end game, right? So one thing, instead of just adding more gameplay activities at end game, we really wanted to let your character progression continue into end game. So when you hit level 30, get into the end game, you're going to choose a specialization. Players can see that on the show floor today. So right here we have the Sharpshooter. So their special weapon is, a 50 cal sniper rifle, but there's also grenade launchers and crossbows, and these really add on top of your other build that you're already creating to kind of just specialize you a little bit more, create interesting group synergies, and also just if you're a solo player, it lets you play the way you want to play.
Yeah.
Keep customizing.
So, you mentioned that end game first philosophy. Was that really something you took away from the Division 1 of giving players a lot of things to do even after they finish the main campaign?
Oh yeah, I think if you see the type of stuff we continue to add, right, through year 1 and year 2, there were tons of different game modes, there were world expansions, there were Dark Zone expansions, all these things, and it's because the players who play this game are very passionate and they consume content, man, and you just always want to give them more stuff to play. It's awesome.
Absolutely. So yeah, we have the Sharpshooter specialization up right now. Let's look in a little bit in depth into some of this gear.
Yeah, so you can also see here that your normal gear that you're equipping, your 6 major slots, have brands associated with them now. And that adds so much to the game because on top of, trying to get a really good set of knee pads, you're trying to combine brands together in interesting ways as well. And it's just, I really think just the core loot game is going to be super interesting in this one and in a real evolution.
Yeah, that's always what hooked me on the first division.
Yeah. You can also see some of the new skills in play here, like associated with them now. And that adds so much to the game because on top of trying to get a really good set of knee pads, you're trying to combine brands together in interesting ways as well. And it's just, I really think just the core loot game is going to be super interesting in this one and in a real evolution.
Yeah, that's always what hooked me on the first division.
Yeah. You can also see some of the new skills in play here, like associated with them now. And that adds so much to the game because on top of trying to get a really good set of knee pads, you're trying to combine brands together in interesting ways as well. And it's just, I really think just the core loot game is going to be super interesting. Of like the centerpiece of the specialization, just picking your specialization kind of adds to your toolbox. So it really opens up a whole new progression path, even past getting the weapon, which is, that's the front and center thing, but there's a lot of interesting progression inside of the system. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's jump into the map a little bit and take a look at DC.
Yeah, so you can see here how big the map is compared to New York. So we're about 20% larger than the map we shipped within New York, which was already pretty massive. The E3 demo that people are playing kind of, takes place just in this one little section. And as you start pulling back the map from there, you can really see how much variety we're going to get out of this. Even at this very high level, you can see the difference between the really wide open spaces and start seeing all those different environments. So you can see, up in Georgetown, it's a very suburban feel. And versus, down here where most of the monuments are, like the Capitol that you can see in the background of the demo.
Yeah, and as you said, it's completely open around the Capitol. That's something we didn't see a whole lot of in the
absolutely, right. There's a lot of those tall skyscrapers kind of create some corridors for you, and it's really refreshing to be able to see some one-story buildings and some just the different feel that creates.
And so how does that translate to gameplay?
I think the biggest thing is that you feel like you can attack encounters from so many more angles than last time, right? Like, in the demo you start and you're coming in from one angle, but that's an open world activity. So you can imagine you're leaving the Capitol building, you come from the other side, that plays out so differently. Things feel more open because you have more options of how you want to engage the fights.
Yeah, and so, I think that variability is extremely obvious. When we jump into the demo, we'll see it in a little bit. But when you're making all these different, neighborhoods, like you said, there were sort of 2 different ones in the Division 1.
Yeah.
Now there's many, many more. How do you go about connecting those? How do you make them all feel part of the same world?
Well, the cool thing is, it's all in the city, right? So the city planner kind of did a lot of this for us, and when we bring that in, the fact that we have a nature biome now, right? We have a nature environment that feels totally natural, and that creates such a different type of gameplay. Taking cover on trees,
Yeah.
That's just something that really changes the game at a core level. And it's as you flow between these different environments, you really feel like you're progressing through the city and exploring. I want people, and we all want people who kind of explore this map to be able to go into DC and kind of have the lay of the land.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that DC is one of the most recognizable cities in this country, obviously, mostly because of its monuments, right? How many of those did you get to put into this game?
So, the monuments are a huge deal in DC, right? Like, there's iconic things that we all see so much in pictures and in movies and all these stuff that if you've even never been to DC, you kind of have an idea of how special, like, the White House is, or the the Capitol building, and all these things. So, a lot of them are in there, and you can see them on the map here. Like we have, like a little north here, the White House.
Yeah.
There's things for
Washington
you to explore, find. Washington Monument. You will be able to explore the map and find those things because, it's the one-to-one recreation, and we want you to really feel like you're in DC.
Yeah, and I think if we jump back out of this
Lincoln Memorial.
Map, Yeah, yeah, obviously Lincoln, Jefferson, Roosevelt Island.
Absolutely, yeah. Roosevelt Island really like shows off that natural biome we were talking about.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, and then even the Air and Space Museum. We're here. We're looking at another museum, and I love the amount of realism that it feels like you guys put into this, the believability that this is what DC might look like if something like this happened.
Yeah, you know, we wanted to make it feel real. We wanted to make it feel like 7 months had passed. We wanted you to feel the heat of what that city is like in summer when it started to flood and it's a little nasty, right? Yeah. But yeah, in the background here you can see the Gallery of Modern Art. And it's those types of things that, you know, like the Air and Space Museum, right? Like exploring the city and really getting to see these monuments up close and personal, you know, in a way that you would never be able to do in reality.
Yeah. What I think shows really well here, and what, again, the Division 1 did such a good job of, is that environmental storytelling, that you can walk through an area, a neighborhood, and find out what happened, right? We could see here what exhibition was showing at the Gallery of Modern Art.
You know, one really interesting thing is that, you know, the outbreak happened here at Christmas time as well. So we're in the summer, but you still see those remnants of Christmas. Like famous Christmas trees that are really up in DC at that time of year are still there, but they're dead and their ornaments are hanging on them, you know? And you get that sense of no one ever cleaned this up, and time passed, and nature came out, and all of that stuff.
Yeah, it's bad enough faux pas leaving your Christmas tree up at New Year's, let alone well into summer. But yeah, that's a really great point. That the outbreak hits all at the same time. What happens when it's 6 months down the line, and you know, how do you deal with that? So next up, we gave a little tease of it before. I think we have another trailer to show that'll show off a bit more of what DC has to offer.
How could this have happened here? Of all the capitals, of all the nations on Earth, none more vigilant, safeguarded, prepared. Was it vanity? Bad luck? Or something more sinister? One thing is beyond question. This is where we push back. This is our defining moment. If we fail, our nation falls. We are the free world's last line of defense.
Got to look at that other trailer. What I think that does such a cool job of is really just setting the stakes for what's going on in the Division 2. When, you know, what are those exactly? What's going on?
Well, I mean, the city has collapsed, right? And the civilians have, you know, arrived. They're in little settlements. But a lot of bad factions have risen to power, you know. Specifically, you know, in the demo, you're fighting the True Sons. All these different factions have their own wants and needs. The civilians have their needs. And, you know, you need to get in there and defend the civilians. That's really what it comes down to.
Absolutely, right? Yeah, at this point, DC's fallen in a way, right? The Division is the last line of defense, really, before it all goes down.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, you know, you mentioned the demo. I think we can go to that right now. We got some gameplay to show off.
True Sons have this area locked down. But if you can capture their control point, you'll be clearing the way for the settlement to take it over.
So this is, you know, the area we just sort of took a look at. But what's going on in this demo?
Well, the cool thing about this demo is, you know, this is not some scripted mission. It's not a side mission. It's not a main mission. This is just the open world. This is the living world that we're creating. So the players are just exploring the living world right now, and they come upon a control point. And that's one of these things I was talking about, where that true excuse me, the True Sons faction have moved in there to try to lock it down. And if you get in there, you can call civilians to help you and try to take it back. And if you hold that, you're getting resources for the civilians. You're helping them out. And these types of things can just occur throughout the living world, right? They're different every time you play, and we really want to increase the replayability of even this aspect of the game.
Yeah, and so we're looking here at a 4-person squad, right? Sort of
Yeah.
switching between angles. Walk us through a bit of what these players are doing, what each specialization might be.
Yeah, so I think like the most noticeable thing right off the bat is they're using cover a lot, and that's a core pillar of what we're trying to do. Is we want to really really put an emphasis on the core shooter feel, right? So the lethality is, you really feel it. You want to fight from cover. It feels very tactical. And so you'll see them using a lot of very smart cover and getting kind of flushed out of that cover throughout the demo, right? And having to kind of react on the fly as to what the AI are doing. In terms of their skills, I love the deer. That's one of my favorite.
I love the deer.
Yeah.
I made the mistake of shooting the deer
Oh,
in my
no.
demo just to see if I could, and I felt so guilty.
It broke your heart.
It did. People, don't shoot deers.
Yeah.
Don't do it, even in game.
But anyway, if we look at their actual loadouts, right, we can see here deploying a skill. They've thrown this hive out, and you can see this is one of the new skills that kind of shoots out these little micro drones that seek out targets. Kind of, once again, just like a new toolbox for you to play with. Here we're using another one of the new skills that lets you throw out this kind of explosive mist into the air, and when bullets penetrate inside of it, it lights on fire.
Oh,
so there's
clouds of fire.
Clouds of fire, right? And you can imagine you could lay down this cloud of fire, throw the hive in there. The hive lets out the chain reaction of fire throughout the battlefield. We're trying to create a lot of interesting synergies between what players can actually build.
Yeah. And I think, we started off in sort of a enclosed interior space, and now we see, the Capitol building in the background. It's a much more open space, like you were talking about, than we'd ever seen before.
Yeah, absolutely. I think even that first building we went through, you could have come in through the second story or the bottom and attacked from all these different angles, and it feels like you have options. But then you get into an environment like this, and you could completely 360 flank around this space. There's tons of different tactical positions, and I really think it's going to add to the replayability of the game. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, and you're totally right. Just even seeing here trees and grass and greenery, in the hot DC summer feels like a total change of pace for the division.
That guy just got some sick loot out of that supply drop that was stuck up in the tree. We're trying to hide a lot of stuff like that around the space, which is cool.
Yeah, so I mean, the environments are worth exploring too.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah, you wanna pay attention and look around.
Not only pretty, but they got loot.
That's what this is really about. Just give me more loot.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So here you can see, the control point is up. The True Sons have captured it. When you go in, you could totally try to take this control point back on your own, or you could call in nearby allies. So you shoot off a flare, and that actually calls civilians to come and support you and try to take this back, and then they'll hold it. And they're really out there, and they really have to travel to this space, and it's all part of this living world simulation.
That's awesome to hear.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're looking at a 4-player team right now.
Yeah.
But of course, you can play this all by yourself. So if you need a little support,
yeah, absolutely.
shoot that flare up, right? You got
Yeah, and you can kind of get into position, shoot off the flare, see them approaching, wait to attack until they're there, and kind of really plan out your attack in a more strategic way.
Yeah, that's awesome. So here they're fighting the True Sons. What's important about this point? Why is it a control point?
So each of the control points, there's lots of them littered all around the environment, but they're places that would have some sort of resource that these factions and these settlements need. So it might be, water supplies or food, or there's varying things that they go after. But yeah, each environment has something that these factions want out of it. And this one on top of it is, an amazing crashed Air Force One, which kind of does add to the spectacle.
Oh yeah, certainly. What I think what's cool that we're seeing here too.
Yeah, you'll see the task force has just arrived from when he kicked it in. Sorry to.
No, absolutely. But we get all these different perspectives, and you see how different you can play. You can be right up there in the middle with a shotgun,
like this person just pulled out their specialized weapon, which is the grenade launcher. And you actually have to collect special ammo for that. So you'll be collecting special ammo for your weapon as you play, and and then using it at really the right moment, right? So it's these big explosions of power that are super impactful on the battlefield.
Yeah, we just saw the drone there as well.
Yeah, this person just pulled out their 50 cal sniper rifle. It's pretty meaty. The best way to describe it.
I mean, when you're sitting behind a hefty sniper rifle, you definitely want to feel that kickback, and you want to hear it too, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And a 50 cal, if you did that in real life, you'd fall dull and kind of shoot yourself free. But if you're playing in co-op, you can still have control of your weapon. You're still taking out targets around the battlefield, and your buddy can shoot it off from cover. And you see in some of the demos those little moments happen. We're trying to push a lot of team cooperation, team synergies, but also totally let you play this game solo if you want.
Yeah, but you could totally see how in a game like the Division or the Division 2, where the cover is so important, and being out in the open, especially now that enemies can flank you, they can surround you, could be a death sentence.
Yeah, and in general, the lethality is if you feel it, right? And we want to make it where you feel powerful and you feel like you're taking out enemies quick. And when we do have those enemies that are bigger, bulkier, larger targets that are going to take some concentrated effort and some time, we don't want them just to be bad guys that look like they should go down in a couple shots. So that's why these guys you see, they have a big heavy armor guy, and you can actually shoot the armor off and create different weak points where you're shooting underneath the armor or break his armor off completely. And a lot of the enemies have weak points littered throughout them, and you can see a lot of them in the demo. Like the riot foam guy, you can shoot his riot foam pack and it will lock him down, which is really cool. Yeah, and people around him. It's neat.
That's awesome.
Yep.
And we talked about the openness world, how it lets you approach things from 360 degrees, get the drop, ambush people how you like, but your enemies can also use it against you too, right?
Yeah, I mean, you really have to be on your toes, that's for sure, right? Like, the cover layout as you're approaching that crashed Air Force One that's a really wide battlefield. So, there's cover positions way back, which are awesome for that person with the 50 cal to kind of keep an eye on the entire battlefield. But as you push in, you'll see the enemies. They're moving around you. They're trying to flank you. They're trying to push you into different cover positions or pinch you. And you really have to be more on your toes.
Yeah. Well, Keith, I'm infinitely excited about the Division 2.
Cool.
We're still talking. We're still here. But when's it coming out and where?
It's March 15th, 2019. PS4, Xbox One, PC. Very excited.
Awesome. The thing I love though is that there's still plenty of reason to play the Division 1.
Yeah, for sure.
There's a lot going on there.
It's still going.
Yeah. So what's happening in the Division 1 still?
So there's stuff happening every month. Every month we're running different global events. The Strike global event is up right now for a few more days. And those are kind of just something we added in year 2 that are kind of really good and fun ways to mix up the gameplay, get back in there and farm some cool gear. We also have special events going like double XP weekends and double rewards, things like that. But then on top of that, we also are still doing patches. We just did the 1.8.3 balance patch. So we're still listening to the community. We're still, very much trying to keep the game alive. And we have such a big community playing it right now. We want to support them.
Talk a little bit more about what shields are in the Division.
Yeah, no, shields are super cool. That's something we added a few months ago. And basically, each month from now until Division 2 ships, there's a new set of these commendations, which are kind of like challenging in-game achievements for you to go and try to complete. And as you complete those commendations, you're getting rewards for your Division 1 character, which is awesome. But if you complete enough of them, you'll have rewards waiting for you in Division 2. So we really want to, the players playing this game are passionate. They put tons of hours into it. In Division 2, you're starting as that new agent, that's been sent to DC. But we want to give you some rewards for all the time you spent in Division 1. So get in there and grind out the commendations, which is pretty much what the people on the team are doing too. So
yeah, no, yeah. That's what's so cool. And you mentioned taking this end game first mentality with the Division 2, and I think it's just showing how much the dev team is doubling down and focusing to this day on the Division 1 and bringing end game content.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've added so much to Division 1 over time. The game is just it's very full right now. We have the 3 major expansions that came out in year 1 that added tons of interesting new game modes, and then there were, PvE world expansions in year 2 and PvP modes, and it's a really large game right now. There's a lot to get through for gamers.
Yeah, absolutely. So, one thing I want to ask you.
Yeah.
Division 2 comes out March 15th. What specialization are you picking?
Oh my gosh, Demolitionist.
Demolitionist,
Yeah, it just hit me real fast.
You heard it here,
That was
folks.
off the cuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. I like it. So, folks, that's it for our segment on the Division 2. You can pre-order the game right now to get access into the private beta. Comes out March 15th, Xbox One, PS4, PC. We're going to be right back after this. We still got plenty more coming up. We're talking For Honor, Starlink Battle for Atlas, Far Cry, Brawlhalla. Keep it locked right here. We'll be right back.